Okay, we are here to talk about Lady in the Lake, episode 5 on Apple TV Plus. This episode titled Every Time Someone Turns Up Dead in That Lake, It Does Seem to Lead to You. Again, directed by Alma Harrell. This episode written by Boaz Yakin, who will also write the finale, we have recently learned. In 1946, Cameron, remember that, Maddie and Alan's father have a secret affair, and then he pressures her to get an abortion. In the more modern timeline, 1967-68, Milton meets Maddie at the Silver Dollar Diner, tells her he wants a divorce on the grounds of abandonment, and that Maddie should not reach out to Seth anymore. He does not feel safe with her. Cleo's body is discovered by city workers in the fountain out in the lake because Maddie responded to a letter she received as part of her Miss Helpline role at the Baltimore Star from someone named Bill Smith about lights being out at the lake. She pretends with her boss that she does not have the letter so she can begin investigating Cleo's murder. Maddie tries to get information from an African American publication called The Afro about Cleo, but they want nothing to do with her or with the Baltimore Star. At Cleo's funeral, her husband, Slappy, causes a scene and gets kicked out. Maddie follows him out, learns about Lucille, who was in on the bet from Christmas Eve, and realizes that she has actually crossed paths with Cleo before. Maddie confronts Shell Gordon about the numbers game and what happened with Cleo, but really gets nowhere with him. Lastly, she goes to visit Stefan's mother, but she only visits her after writing again to Stefan and talking to him on the phone about Cleo. He says that he has nothing to do with that death. Trying to find out if Maddie believes that or not. Maddie visits his mother, looking for help to exonerate Stefan. She becomes furious and thinks that he does need some time in this prison. She attacks Maddie, stabs her, but then cuts her own throat and dies there in her home. Lot to like in this episode, not the least of which being it's a good thing we don't live in a culture anymore where we slap women on the ass where they go to work. So
Every
what else
day.
besides that do you did you enjoy about this one?
Um, yeah, I mean, a lot happened. I was kind of stunned by the end.
Very much
Um,
so. Yeah.
Tended to start there just because you just ended your summary there, which makes sense because it's the end of the episode. Um, as you say, she goes and talks to Stefan's mother, serve coffee and some cake. They talk about Poland and right, Stefan's mother is from a town in Poland that became a concentration camp and all of
Yeah.
that. And what's my question? Why'd you stab her?
Yeah. It, it, the best I can tell from this, because I've watched that particular scene in this episode 3 times now because I was curious. It seems like first, like it seems like Stefan's mother is mentally unstable, and when it comes to her son, she just goes down that path, and it's hard for her to get back out from it. She says she thinks that he needs time in that prison, time in that hospital to learn from things, to understand what he's done, and doesn't appreciate that Maddie is working to try to, I guess, prove that he is innocent of these murders. She doesn't agree with that. It seems like there's some tinge of some racial issues here as well, or maybe more appropriately, some ethnic issues here. So there's sort of that tension that is sort of underlying here in their conversation, but she just really doesn't agree with what Maddie's doing. But I think a reasonable person would have a conversation about that, or even maybe even argument about that. She just resorts to when she doesn't agree with something or with someone, just stabbing them. We've already seen her beat Stefan several times in episodes previously, so she just, just is just clearly unstable when it comes to this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's the extreme reaction that causes a question in me a bit.
Yeah.
I guess I'm thinking about her relationship with Stefan and to what extent that was or is what was because she's dead, but whatever.
Mhm.
Um, maybe abusive, controlling. To what extent is
Yes.
it? Because it seems like the thing that really sets her off is when Maddie starts telling her that Stefan escaped and came to visit Maddie, and that how much
Yes.
he likes talking to Maddie. You're right about that. So
Yeah.
I feel like there's a weird. layer of jealousy or
Yeah, that
something.
she has to have that level of control over him. And when she does not, A, know that he did that, and B, he went to her instead of his mom, she just completely flips out over that.
Yeah, that's kind of how it strikes me. And then I guess I think that she slit her own throat because she realized now that she would be in trouble. She's created this situation that's going to be very bad for her personally. Is that what you think? Or, I
I
mean,
I
is there
guess, I
something
mean,
else
it's
going on?
one thing to treat your own son a certain way who's not going to go run to the police or run to the newspaper or whatever. Another thing to have someone come into your home from a newspaper who's working on something publicly and stab them. I guess she just realized the consequences of her actions. But
I
yeah,
guess.
it was not a predictable outcome. I can say that.
Right. I mean, yeah, it's weird to say almost that that part makes some rational almost sense to me, I guess. Like if you start thinking, oh no, now I have to either kill this woman and then I've got a dead body to deal with, or I don't
Hmm.
kill her and then she's going to call the police on me and I don't know how to get out of this. But I don't know. At the same time, it makes me wonder whether something's going on. I mean, let's go back and fold in briefly the mystery about what happened to Tessie,
Okay.
whether Stefan is guilty, the possibility that Stefan is not guilty,
Hmm.
and I promise I'd mention it every week. Santa Claus. What's going on in that Santa Claus scene? You know. So is there any possibility that it was actually Stefan's mother who was involved herself and
Right,
bears
because
some
Stefan and
guilt?
Tessie were having conversations in the fish store before she goes missing, if I remember correctly. And so is this another level of jealousy of you spending time companionship with someone else, developing a connection with somebody else, and she goes into another fit of rage about that, just like she's done here with Maddie. That certainly could sound reasonable to me.
Yeah. And, some indications of anti-Semitism on her part.
Hmm.
So I don't know, something to think about as a possibility
Yeah,
that
I certainly think
maybe
so.
she bears some guilt in terms of what happens to Tessie. Um, in many ways, Stefan to me does not seem guilty. I don't know. I mean, it's like, yeah, he's creepy
Yeah.
and disturbed, but yeah, still thinking about the Santa Claus scene. We also, though, Maddie puts together that it was maybe probably Reggie who was in the fish store, although she makes a little leap in logic there that we almost have because he doesn't have a black eye anymore.
He doesn't. He doesn't. But
Um,
she saw him when he did, or
did
understood that
she?
that he had one, maybe from Platt or from someone, that this is the person who had one, if I understand correctly. I could That could be something that I'm
Maybe.
misremembering, but that plus the fish in the office when she goes to see Shell, yeah, she's put that together.
Yeah, maybe there's something I'm not remembering. I thought that she just kind of made the inference from Reggie saying he's a boxer and
Yeah,
the fish, and that was all that she had to go on.
yeah.
Which it's like okay, maybe fair enough. Whatever, we don't put too much on that, but yeah. Um, I did enjoy that scene when she goes to visit Shell, um, and they're back and forth, and the ongoing way in which the show is dealing with dynamics pertaining to race and
Yeah.
the differences between um, the black experience in Baltimore in the 1960s and the Jewish
Yeah.
experience in Baltimore in the 1960s. Um,
I
and
thought that was also very compelling. I think Shell's a very compelling character. I think he's a very interesting character, primarily because he believes so much that what he's doing is right, whether
yeah,
it's even if it is hurting a certain amount of folks, it's giving some folks hope. He's giving some folks employment. He's giving them some sense of agency when they feel like they don't have it anywhere else. And so he very much believes in what is right, and he keeps saying everything I do is for Black Power, which is a different connotation than you and I might think about it when we hear the term Black Power. It's more the ability to rise up from what what you've been doing. And so, yeah, that conversation where Maddie's trying to get something out of him, and Shell's just, on his talking points the whole time, I thought was really fascinating.
yeah, and I mean taking it from his perspective, I don't know. I don't know if I can quite go all the way, but there do seem to be real indications that he's not just amassing a bunch of wealth for himself, but he really is investing in the Black community in Baltimore, and you can follow that vision out. I mean, the fact that the numbers game is rigged, that's a point against him
Yeah,
in my
yeah,
mind. That's a big one. That's maybe
yeah.
the biggest one. Because even the idea of the numbers game itself, okay, it's like an illegal lottery. And you could have some worries about that as being exploitative. Sure. But, we've got a legal lottery. Is that exploitative? Maybe, right? But, what's the difference between the legal lottery and the illegal lottery? Maybe not huge in my mind. But then the fact that it's rigged,
Yeah.
that makes it more worrisome and so on. But I definitely agree. He's a very compelling character. Oh, look, I mean, he also had Theo killed. So
Yeah.
he's
Which
like a gangster. So,
which okay, so we get confirmation. We had this whole debate last week, which ended up being for nothing. That was this Cleo. Now I'm about to
well,
say something.
go
I don't
ahead.
know if you noticed this. We do not see Cleo's face in this
Okay, that's
episode.
what I was going to say.
Okay.
Did you say it's confirmed that Cleo is dead?
Yeah.
And yeah, maybe. I think, I still think that yes, this is Cleo who's dead. But you put the little seed in my mind last week, and so I was paying attention this episode, and we don't see her face. Maybe thankfully, because what we're told by the medical examiner is she's in really rough shape because she's been in the water for a few months.
Yeah.
How possible is it to identify for sure that this is Cleo?
So this is my question: is surely
Her
there are people?
mother,
Yeah, we see Maddie go to the medical examiner, and he said, "Oh, she's in such bad shape. She was just in the water for several months." You would expect someone like Maddie, who only had very brief chance encounters with Cleo, to not necessarily be able to identify, but were her husband, her family, her parents, her employer, her anybody who else who could have been there, were they able to identify her based on anything other than the clothes that she was wearing, the coat that she owned? I think that was left ambiguous. So I can't say I'm completely out on this theory, even though I'm still mostly out on the theory.
I was going to say, the door's open. So I don't think this is true, right? I don't think this is going to be something that happens
Yeah,
that we learn. But the door does seem to be still open for the possibility that the lady in the lake is not Cleo, but someone else. So
yeah,
I started trying to, follow this out. What would this look like? That Reggie killed someone else instead to save Leo? I don't quite buy that, right? And who would he have killed?
yeah,
Dora comes to mind, who was supposedly in Paris. But Reggie loved Dora. Reggie wouldn't have killed Dora. But Dora is a heroin addict. What if Dora overdosed and died,
hmm,
and Reggie decided, all right, I don't like this, but here's a way out.
yeah,
He goes and meets Cleo in the park and says, hey, Shell told me to kill you. Give me some of that money. We're going to take your clothes. We're going to put them on Dora. This is sad. I know she's your friend. I'm going to dump her in the lake, and you skip town.
I do not think this is an unreasonable theory. We, I, part of me thinks we are on the right track here. And why would he do that? There seems to be some kind of bond connection between Cleo and Reggie. And even though Reggie was in love with Dora, I think there might be something there between the two of them. And he's hoping, well, at some point maybe I can get out of here and skip town and go be with you. He certainly does not want to be working with Shell Gordon anymore. So. I think we might be walking down the right road, although, I'm certainly willing to be wrong about
Yeah, I almost want to be wrong about it, actually. So to be
it.
clear,
Yeah,
like I don't know that what I was
yeah,
just saying is speculation. So if it ends up being right, I guess I just guessed well. But
yeah,
I'm not really the kind of television viewer who wants to figure it out and guess
yeah,
well
yeah,
beforehand. I prefer not to in a certain
yeah.
way.
And
Um,
we should be clear, this is a show that is at least loosely built around true stories that happened in Baltimore in the late 1960s about two women found in a lake. And this one, Maddie, who wanted to begin a career in investigative journalism. Now, once these mysteries have come up, I have stopped looking into the details of what exactly happened and what did they figure out and who it was. So, and these aren't even the right names of the actual people who died.
Yeah,
So, the chances are this is a lot of fiction built into truth here. But
same.
we,
Yeah. Same in terms of purposefully not looking into
yeah,
all of the known details about the historical cases. But from what I have read, the impression I've gotten is while there were the real cases, um, that this is almost entirely fiction building out
yeah,
the story. And,
yeah,
I think even it might be at the level of with a real historical Lady in the Lake, we don't know
yeah, exactly.
what happened. I'm not positive about that. I stopped reading.
Yeah.
Um, but but this is the location of that too, and that's something of a segue, I guess, or seg. I don't know, whatever. We were told that Maddie says she got this letter from Bill Smith, and what's the guy's name? Bob, reporter. I think his name is Bob. Well,
Bob
that's a
Bauer.
fake
Yeah.
name. I don't know if it's Bill Smith. Lots of people are named Bill Smith. What do you think? Is it a fake name? Who do you think wrote this letter? Do you think it was
I I
some actual
I
guy named
think
Bill Smith?
I think this is a fake name. I think if I'm to propose a theory, I think this is Reggie that sent this letter, and that he sent this letter so that Cleo, quote unquote, or Cleo, the actual Cleo, could be found, and Shell will get off his back because we remember Shell saying, if she's not dead by Christmas morning, there won't be an angel merciful enough to save you. Like, so if you don't take care of her, then I'm going to take care of you. Now, he's told her that he's done it, but he needs something to happen to show that actually, yes, she's dead. And he
Okay.
respects her enough, whether it's Cleo or not, to at least have her body found and give her a proper funeral and burial.
Oh, yeah, that
That's
makes
my
some
that's my
sense.
theory. That's my theory.
Maybe Shell's been, a little suspicious of whether he actually did it, and
Yeah.
that would make some sense. That's a possibility for sure. Um,
How about you?
I don't have anything else. I don't know. The only thing I have is like maybe there really is a guy named Bill Smith. Like
Yeah,
when I was
could be.
jumping to say that it's a fake name. I'm sure that there are plenty of people named Bill Smith in Baltimore in the late 1960s.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, to
I
be clear, just in the city where I live, when things are wrong, like lights on a fountain not being on, there are plenty of people lining up to, send a message to the right people to get those things fixed. So it's not unrealistic to think that somebody is just really pissed about the fountain lights not being on in the lake.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like there's gonna be some guy named Bill Smith who's like, "Hey, man, the lights on the fountain are out.
Yeah.
And, let's do something about it. What's going on?" But we'll see. We'll see if we find out more about that as we move forward. I did think it was pretty interesting, and I guess I want to lump in something about this. The kind of structure of things I thought was really interesting as Medi does go and talk to Shell and meet Slappy, and how we have been inhabiting that world as viewers for the past four episodes,
Hmm.
but she's entering into it. Um, I don't know. I guess I just thought that was kind of cool. Any thoughts on that front?
Yeah, it was interesting in that it's almost like we know so much about the details of what Shell does, who he is, what Slappy does, who he is, about what he's been trying to get with Cleo and the the disagreements he's had with her family. And so you're almost, when you see Maddie not getting much at all, just getting little bits and pieces of information, you're rooting for her to figure it out, like we've already figured it out. And she gets some things from Shell, she gets the Lucille information from Slappy, but yeah, so it's sort of like we have a lot more pieces of the puzzle, and she's slowly gathering them as she goes along this investigation.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's almost like a inverse mystery,
Yeah.
except that if you think about it, we know everything except for the most important things.
Hmm.
Who we haven't seen either of them murders
Right.
themselves.
Exactly right. Yep.
So, um, Lots of mysteries, lots of questions. I guess let's move to talk about the thing with the dates.
Yeah.
We were talking about this before we started recording, trying to make sure we had our facts right. The title card at the beginning of this episode says 1946, clear as day. I went back, I double checked it and everything. Here we see that Maddie and Hal, Alan's father,
Hmm.
are engaged in a secret affair. Um, and she tells him that she believes she's pregnant,
Hmm.
right? Then later in the episode, as you also mentioned in your summary, there's this is more trauma flashback territory, but all indications are that Hal pressured her to have an abortion of this pregnancy. What's weird is I went back to episode 2
Hmm.
when Maddie is interviewing Alan's mother and then talks to Hal. That is marked as being in 1947. So the show's telling us that what we saw in episode 2 happens after what we saw in this episode, which I found surprising. I would have
I
guessed it was the
found
other
it
way around.
completely surprising as well, only because when I saw episode two, I assumed this was a first meeting between,
Yeah.
or maybe they had run into each other. She's dating Alan, they've seen each other, but really a first actual conversation between Maddie and Hal Durst. But we're putting this the way that they've proposed it to us now is they've had this whole history of an affair, of a pregnancy, of an abortion, of all of this time together, at least months and months before this meeting that they have there in the house in 1947. So yeah, I can't say that quite computes with how they want us to think about this, but they're signaling. I mean, the facts are the facts.
I mean, unless it's a mistake, but I
Yeah.
don't know because it's clear as day. They've got these title cards with the years and they're stylized. They
Hmm.
obviously like put thought into them, you know. Um, there, so it is very intentional what they're telling us with those dates that they put on the screen. It could some possibility that it's a mistake, but I don't know. I guess we just have to roll with the idea that it isn't. The first thing that stuck out to me about 1946 is, we've had this question of, well, who is Seth's biological father? If it's not
Hmm.
Milton, indications that have had us talking about the possibility, at least, that Hal and Natty did have a sexual affair going all the way
Yeah.
back to the premiere, right?
Right.
But it was just quick flashes and all of that. So that wasn't terribly surprising. But 1946 wouldn't line up with that pregnancy being Seth. That was the first thing I got to thinking about, right? Because when we're in 1967, I don't know if we've been told exactly how old he is, but I think he's like 17 or maybe 18,
That's exactly what I was going to say. It
not
lines up
20.
more with like a 1949, 1950 birth. And so neither of these years would, whether it was Hal, whether it was Alan, whether it was, a later pregnancy with Hal. I mean, this would have to be 3 or 4 years later for this to actually make sense.
Well, I don't know if it'd be 3 or 4 years later. Um, I think it still could be Hal, but it still feels weird because going back to that scene from episode 2, which I think we both rewatched like
Hmm.
earlier today,
Yep.
uh, even if it's not when they first met, it feels at least a little wonky to me to conceive of it as being after the abortion. But I guess,
Yeah. I
or in
mean,
the middle
unless
of that.
they're, yeah, unless they're saying that the affair started at some point in 1946, maybe sometime many months later or post the meeting in 1947, she gets pregnant. I mean, they could have had this relationship for a couple of years, 3 years. Who knows? We just are not given that specifics of, we're just given, as you
Yeah,
said, sort of these trauma flashbacks of the idea of having this abortion. But again, you alluded to the conversation that we do get in 1946. She sort of implies that she is pregnant. So yeah, I just
yeah.
it's not circling for me yet on sort of how they're wanting this to work out.
It's weird to me, and I'm not sure how I feel about the fact that this question is as much of a mystery as it is in the show. Does it need to be?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. What's the point?
Trying to put it together, I guess what I'm thinking is the affair continues
Yeah.
and she gets pregnant again. and that's when it ends, right? That she says the second time,
Yeah,
no,
I'm
I'm
having this
carrying this
child.
child, I'm carrying this one to term. I'm not doing that again.
Yeah,
And then that's the end of their relationship. And then she goes and finds Milton as fast as she can, so she can pretend that Milton is
yeah,
the biological father. Um,
yeah. They get married quickly, and yeah, the timing
yeah.
works for
And
that.
in
Yeah.
terms of the dates, right? I don't know if you have to go all the way to 1950. If it was, say, 1948 that she got pregnant the second time, and then 9 months takes us into 1949, and then Seth is 17 in 1966.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, if he's 17, 18 in the show, which I don't know that we have confirmation of that, then that's what makes sense. Yeah.
I think the only what I'm basing that on primarily is in the earlier episode, they were talking about colleges
Okay. Yep.
and the idea of him going to college, making sure to get into college so he doesn't get sent to Vietnam and stuff like that. So I feel like he's in high school, but I think he's like a high school senior.
Yeah. Yeah. That would make
That's
sense.
where I
Yep.
think he is in terms of his age. So anyhow, um, we do have
Yeah.
the scene with Milton. Any more we want to say about
Yeah.
that?
Other than just he's found his 25-year-old fling and ready to officially end this with Maddie. It did strike me in that whole conversation. She's kind of waiting for him to say that he now knows he's not Seth's father and seems to have some weight lifted off of her when we learn that he does not yet, or he does not seem to know that yet.
No, he doesn't, because he says that he had this heart to heart with Seth, and Seth opened up, but not about that.
Yeah.
Um, According to Milton, Seth has said he doesn't feel safe at Maddie's place. He's asking Maddie to stop pressuring Seth to come to her place in the bottom
Mhm.
and so on. Um, that's about it. We don't see Seth in this episode, so
Nope, nope, not at all.
um, still get a divorce. Maybe
Yeah,
she can sell her
he
car
says
then.
he'll do right by her and pay for the lawyers and meanwhile she can continue her relationship with Officer Platt. It's like they're both, I guess, sort of getting what they want out of this whole thing.
Yeah. Maybe let's talk about that briefly before we wrap up here with the relationship with Officer Platt.
Yeah.
Because Maddie starts kind of spinning out almost, I want to say,
Hmm.
in terms of getting sucked into this investigation, clipping all of these things from the newspapers, trying to piece things together, gets told at the department store that the dress that she bought on Thanksgiving,
Yeah.
what Cleo had been wearing in the window, which she hadn't put together before that, the comment from Stefan on the phone that gives us the again incredibly long episode title. Every time someone turns up dead in that lake, it does seem to lead to you. This feeling that Maddie seems to be having that she's almost the locus of all of this stuff.
Yeah.
Um, but then Platt shows up at her apartment and I mean, she ultimately just tells him to go away. So
Yeah. She does. But it seems like I don't know if he doesn't want her to go down this investigative road or doesn't feel like it's necessary or he's got some allegiance to the Baltimore PD that they've put this guy away for doing this thing. How dare you question us that we didn't get this right? He just does not at all, it seems, feel like these are paths that she should be pursuing. That we figured it out, right? We'll figure out Cleo eventually, but we've already figured out the other one.
yeah, I mean, I was wondering about where he stands on this exactly because also with Cleo, because Stefan was at the lake that night.
Right.
Apparently, they're trying to pin Cleo on him too.
Yes.
Um, Maybe Platt is going along with that.
Yeah.
I had kind of thought that, given how he knows Cleo and all of that, that he would also be interested in more investigation and so on. But um, part of me thinks, maybe he doesn't want to ruffle the feathers that he knows this will ruffle. Shell's powerful, Shell's dangerous,
Yeah.
and Maddie is challenging how he has sort of reconcile themselves maybe to not looking into this more. And that might change moving forward, right? Maybe as she pushes on it more, he comes around to looking into it more too. But
Yeah, I think you're right about that, and especially in that he doesn't want to ruffle feathers. He's got this brand new job as homicide detective. He doesn't want to be seen like he's involved in any sort of effort to undo what the police have already done.
yeah, maybe. But it's a question about, I don't know. I'm also thinking about, well, where does the relationship stand insofar as she kind of yells at him and tells him to go away? They're having this illicit affair, and
Yes.
a lot of it hangs on him sneaking in her window randomly, right? When she tries to talk to him in public at Cleo's funeral, he's like, no, we have to pretend like we don't know each other. We're in public, right?
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of difficulty potentially in terms of, I don't know, even just the communication of, oh no, go ahead and come over again. I don't know. Maybe I'm overthinking that, and the show will just wave its hands at it, and you know they'll hook up again, and without even dealing with this as like an issue. But it's something I got to thinking about because he is very. When she talks to him at the funeral, she is very. He's very much like, no, we can't be doing this. We can't be seen like even being friendly
Yeah.
in public.
Why,
Because
why would they why would they know each other? Even if it's a relationship between a reporter and police officer, it's inappropriate. So yeah, they can't be seen doing any of that. I agree.
and on this note, I want to make a. This is a almost a correction from something in a previous podcast that about the years. The years are significant, right?
Mhm.
That this is now 1967. The previous story was 1966. I believe that I misspoke on a previous podcast. We were talking about the possibility of them going to the Colts game. No, I'm sure no one noticed this. Okay. But I think I accidentally said 1968 on that podcast. Um, it's significant that it's not insofar as the Supreme Court case Loving versus Virginia, which struck down laws against interracial marriage,
Hmm.
was in June of 1967.
I see. Okay. Oh,
So
that's good research on your part.
just to put a little, yeah, research and history behind it. It makes a difference in this case that it's
Yeah.
1967, early 1967. It's not 1968. So, yeah. Um, let's see. I think looking at our notes that we've hit on just about all of them. Anything else you want to talk about before we wrap this up?
No, I think that's it. We have two episodes left of this show. Next one on Friday, August 16th. We finally get a shorter title. I know who killed Cleo Johnson. So somebody's going to say that next week, I guess, and we'll
Who do you think will say
see
it,
what it means.
Maddie? It's
Yeah,
going to be Mad. Maddie's going to say
could be Maddie. Yeah.
it. Yeah. Cool. So yeah, we'll be back next week for episode 6. It'll be the penultimate episode. It's only 7 episodes in this series, I guess. I don't expect there to
Yeah.
be multiple seasons.
Yep.
So hopefully you'll join us. Hopefully you've been enjoying the podcast. If so, please do leave us a good rating, leave us a review, give a thumbs up on that YouTube video if you're watching on YouTube, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Thanks as always for listening. Check out tvobsessive.com. You follow the site on social media, search for TV Obsessive. We're on X for the time being. We're still on X. And part of me thinks about quitting X, but I don't want to get too political. We're on Facebook. We're on Blue Sky, Instagram, and Threads. And yeah, thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.
All right. Looking forward to it. See you next time.